must feel with merit. Wrapping ourselves in Buddhist teaching, we feel all living beings. And though I thus liberate countless beings, not a single being is liberated.
Incense chat.
Precepts incense, liberation of views incense, cloud of lighted incense pouring into the Dharma realms. Offering to the highest teachers of the 10 directions, I respectfully bow to the altar of the incense cloud. Bodhisattva.
Wisdom dedication.
We dedicate this time and place to the 3 jewels,
To the Buddha, the ideal of enlightenment to which we aspire. To the Dharma, the path of the teaching that we follow. To the Sangha, the spiritual fellowship with one another that we enjoy. Here may no idle word be spoken. Here may no unquiet thoughts disturb our minds.
To the observance of the 5 precepts,
we dedicate this place.
To the practice of meditation,
we dedicate this place.
To the ripening of wisdom,
we dedicate this place.
To the joy of awakening,
we dedicate this place.
Though in the world outside there is strife,
here may there be peace.
Though in the world outside there is hate,
here may there be joy.
Here seated, here practicing, may our minds become Buddha, may our thoughts become Dharma, may our speech together become Sangha, for the happiness of all beings, for the benefit of all beings, with body, speech, and mind, we dedicate this place.
Chant of compassion. We surround all forms of life with infinite love and compassion. Especially do we send out compassionate thoughts to those in suffering and sorrow, to those in doubt and ignorance, to all who are striving to attain truth, and to those whose feet stand close to the great change called death, we send forth all wisdom, mercy, and love. May the infinite light of wisdom and compassion so shine within us that the errors and vanities of self may be dispelled. So shall we understand the changing nature of existence and awaken into spiritual peace. The refuges.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha. The five precepts.
I take up the practice of not harming living beings.
I take up the practice of not harming living beings.
I will not take what is not offered.
I will not take what is not offered.
I will not misuse sexuality or sensuality.
I will not misuse sexuality or sensuality.
I will practice gentle, truthful speech.
I will practice gentle, truthful speech.
I will not deal in nor misuse intoxicants.
I will not deal in nor misuse intoxicants. The Buddha Sarangamagata. True nature is free from all phenomena, which are illusions by causes created. Phenomena neither rise nor fall, but all phenomena are flowers in the sky. The unreal reveals the real, but both are illusions, since there is nothing real nor unreal. How can there be a subject and an object? For between the two there is no true nature, like the point where two rushed bundles meet when set upright, tying and untying from the same cause arise, while the disregard it, you are in delusion. If you awaken to it, you are free at once. 6 knots are untied, one after the other. When 6 are undone, one vanishes as well. Choose a sense organ that is all penetrating to enter the holy stream and attain Bodhi. Old habits flow like torrents in Alaya's subtle consciousness, since the real yet unreal can create confusion. I have refrained from revealing it to you. If mind be set on searching for the mind that which at heart is not illusion, becomes illusory. If you stop all grasping, then there is nothing real. If what is not illusion ceases to arise, where can illusion be? This is the profound lotus Dharma, the precious Bodhi of the royal gem, the samadhi of seeing all things as illusion, which in a finger snap leads to the state beyond all study, the unsurpassed doctrine was followed by all Bhagavats in all directions on the one path that to nirvana leads.
starting a Dharma Talk can seem difficult because you're not sure what to start with and you're not sure what to talk about. That's the point of a Dharma Talk. It really shouldn't be planned in advance. It's an opportunity to have some spontaneous insight. And I think that, once the Dharma Talk starts, it's like a collective sigh of relief because that tension of not knowing what to talk about is dissipated. I think there's a lot of fear around it because it's revealing. What you talk about and what you say is revealing of your practice. And I think that we can be very critical of ourselves. I think it's easy to get caught up in all of the tradition around the practice. And it's gotten to a point today where it seems like it's mostly tradition in the world. That there is nobody really teaching the real practice, the mechanism of practice. And tradition has its place. But I think once traditions lose their meaning, like you don't understand the purpose of them, they're not serving anybody other than historians. And even that has a place. But if we don't understand what we're doing, we don't understand the meaning. If we chant in another language, nobody can tell, what it actually means. Then that's empty practice. You're not getting anything from that other than feeling good about attending, other than feeling like you're avoiding some kind of ridicule that might come from not attending or not participating. So I like to think about the practice in terms of what is that called? Practical application. There is a procedure to this, what we do. Our practice should be watching our thoughts. Our practice should be using Supreme Bodhi, should be using Supreme Bodhi to resolve unskillful thoughts. It should be the pursuit of being able to maintain Supreme Bodhi through challenging times and also through mundane times. Really, the ultimate goal is to be able to sustain Supreme Bodhi all the time. And that's a really broad thing to say. I think that it has its place, but it's easy to get lost in that. So my approach and what I encourage my students to do is targeted practice, is effort, practice with effort and concentration, not in a way that means I'm exerting all of this effort. And so that must mean I'm good at practicing. No, the effort should be vigilance of watching our thoughts all the time, of identifying maybe a lot of us start out with a behavior that we want to stop, behavior of impatience, a behavior of jumping to conclusions, prejudice, behavior of, maybe feeling sad or having a dependency. And starting from there, you can work your way backwards. You can see that there's a pattern here. What thoughts am I thinking when this unwanted behavior starts? What thoughts am I thinking before it starts? What sort of things are the triggers to those thoughts? What am I seeing or hearing, tasting, touching, thinking that's triggering more thoughts that triggers the feeling or the behavior, the response? And so this targeted approach, this targeted effort isn't just, I'm going to sit here quietly for half an hour. And when I walk out the door, do nothing. Because that is, a cliche, in Zen, nothing. But that's not really what we're doing. I mean, that, nothing is that whole base of nothingness in Zen is a vastly oversimplified picture. That nothing is a result of years of working to get to that nothingness, to get to that practice without effort. It doesn't just happen. We don't just sit here and one day experience Supreme Bodhi. We don't just sit here and one day experience Samadhi, Sahaja Samadhi. Those things take practice, they take effort, they take targeted effort. And maybe we do have, cases where people experience that without perceived effort. But in order to sustain, in order to keep improving, there needs to be a path. And so things like impatience, things like intolerance, things like noticing that you might treat someone different than everybody else. Maybe you treat people at work differently than you treat people at home. You treat your friends differently than you treat your family. Maybe, you treat the ants on your countertop differently than you treat the spider on the wall. Those are telling behaviors that can point to opportunities to practice. And it really is a polishing to a point. It's, you notice that there's something that's incongruent with your practice, and you work on polishing that. And the way to polish that is kind of like an exposure therapy. It's not unskillfully, if it causes harm to you to expose yourself to that, then don't do it. If it's too much, if you don't think that, you're going to be able to handle it in a healthy way, if maybe it triggers a trauma that you're not equipped to deal with in the moment, then don't do it. But for the vast majority of these things that we encounter every day that seem really small, it's about going and intentionally watching the thoughts that happen when you're faced with that person, that group of people, that insect that you're afraid of. It's about watching the thoughts and working towards noticing, what, every time I see a spider, I have thoughts of fear. I have thoughts that it's going to hurt me. I have feelings that, that I need to get away. And that's where we get, the sayings, hearing, sit with it. Sit with the thoughts of fear, the feelings of fear. Sit with, the discomfort that comes with being around people that might be frustrating. And use your Supreme Bodhi practice to resolve those thoughts. And over time, you'll notice that those thoughts just don't come up anymore. I mean, when I started practicing, I had an irrational fear of ants. And what I would do is I would just lean over the kitchen counter and watch them. Because we have these sugar ants, And over time, my fearful thoughts stopped all the way. I'm not afraid of ants anymore. Because I worked on getting rid of the thoughts associated with the fear of ants. And it's not about reason. It's not about saying ants can't hurt me. That's not the practice either. It's about using Supreme Bodhi to resolve the thoughts. I mean, I think it's about intention as well. If you have this effort to get rid of this behavior, this fear of ants, and you look at the ants and you notice that, the fear is arising, you can use things like the countertop is flat, but not as an avoidance. Use the thought of the countertop is flat as a way to slow it down. So when we're looking at intentionally doing this practice, it is very much about how you use the tools that you have. If I use the countertop as flat in order to get back to that equilibrium, I'm looking for the space between the thought about the ant and the thought about the countertop. I'm not using the countertop as a means to avoid the ant. And that's why I like to use the term resolving thoughts, because it's an effort. It's a targeted effort to resolve back to Supreme Bodhi from the thought that creates a trigger. So I think that it is good that there is a awareness in the world of Buddhism. It is good that there is an association, that Buddhism creates a place of peace. But I think that, the thing that we are up against is the falseness of nothing, because it isn't nothing. And I think that this is also, highlights the Sangha as well, because when we have these targeted approaches, when we know what each other is working on, we can help each other. We can help, because you're only able to work on what you're aware of. So if you're ignorant to a behavior, if you're ignorant to, being triggered by something, which happens, that Sangha is really important, because we can support each other and point out, hey, I know you're working on this. I've noticed that, it happens in this instance as well. Or maybe it happens in this instance as well. Because we don't know each other fully, truly, but we can be there to support each other. And it can feel cliche and awkward, to take it into everyday life with people that you live with the people that, your friends, people that might not be actively practicing Buddhism. But that also is a practice in and of itself too. We shouldn't hide the practice because you feel like it's cliche, because you feel like it's awkward, like you say it all the time, because that's withholding. Also, it's incongruent. If it only applies sometimes, then you're really limiting yourself. So even things like coworkers, even things like strangers, even things like sometimes the dogs, be honest about what you're doing. Don't withhold what you're doing because you feel like it's weird, or because you feel like it would be, high and mighty of you to say something like that, or because you feel like it's too personal. Because that too is part of the practice. That's aversion. And the more that you practice sharing and being open, the more tolerant that you'll become. And that again is that exposure to the things that we struggle with, so that we can work to get rid of the thoughts that we're working towards getting rid of. Notice if you treat someone else differently, you treat a particular person or a group of people differently. Notice if you have fears that pop up. And if anybody wants to face their fear of public speaking, feel free to, ask to do a Dharma talk. Dharma talks are really, really good at destroying the fear of public speaking. So that concludes my Dharma talk for today.
Closing Gata. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly and an opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken. Awaken, take heed, do not squander your life. Offering of merit. May the merit of this penetrate into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, experience supreme Bodhi.
Okay, and that concludes our service for this week. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.